No, I'm good, thank you. Oh,
Right? Okay. First meeting in the space, just working out the kinks. How are we? Second.
Sorry about that.
We're six now. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Oh, tell me when we're on. Thank you. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so this, I saw, the one who,
Okay.
Okay. Okay,
There's no need, right?
we are going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. My name is Betsy Anderson. I'm the Chair of the Board of Ava Community Energy Board of Directors. And tonight we are having our regularly scheduled Board of Directors meeting of Wednesday, October 22nd, 2025. It is now 6:06 p.m. We have had some technical difficulties, so I'm going to look to our participants on Zoom. If you could just give me a physical thumbs up if you can hear us here. Great. Thank you so much. I appreciate that and appreciate your patience as we work that out. We are located here at Ava's headquarters at 1999 Harrison Street, Suite 2300 in Oakland, California. We usually meet in the boardroom, but I guess we would call this the cafeteria slash.
This is now the boardroom.
This is now our boardroom with snacks close at hand. That's great. So in our boardroom, and we also have members participating at remote locations as identified on the agenda for tonight's meeting. So members of the public wishing to make a comment later in this meeting can do so here in person or can also do so via Zoom by using the raise hand function or *9 if you're through the telephone. Clerk, can you please take the roll call?
Thank you. Alameda County. Albany.
Present.
Berkeley. Dublin.
Present.
Emeryville. Fremont.
Present.
Hayward. Lathrop. Livermore.
Present.
Newark.
Present.
Oakland.
Present.
Pleasanton. San Joaquin County.
Here.
Stockton. Tracy.
Present.
Union City.
Here.
Community Advisory Committee.
Present.
San Leandro. Piedmont.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Wonderful. Quorum has been established. We are now going to move on to the Pledge of Allegiance. So those who are able and would like to join us, please stand.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
Nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We will now move on to agenda item number 3, which is public comment. This item is reserved for persons wishing to address this board on any AVA-related matters that are not otherwise on this meeting agenda. Public comments on matters listed on the agenda shall be heard at the time that matter is called. As with all public comment, members of the public who wish to address the board are customarily limited to 2 minutes per speaker, and we request that you complete an electronic speaker slip. I'm looking at the clerk to see if we have any members of our public here in the room who are wanting to make a public comment at this time. Seeing none, do we have any members of the public online?
Yes, we do. COS 44795, recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you. This is Christina Fugazi, Mayor of Stockton, and I've been trying to get into this meeting since 5:57. So just letting y'all know, I would be participating, but I'm not on.
Thank you.
Wonderful. We will see if we can remedy that right now. And thank you so much for letting us know. We apologize for the technical difficulties. Looking at the clerk, do we have any other members of the public online? No?
There are no hands raised at this time.
Okay, I cannot see the members participating on Zoom, but when we get that screen back, asking the members who are participating by Zoom to let me know if there is any member of the public at your location who would like to make a public comment at this time. Okay, seeing none, we are closing public comment and we are moving on to item number 4, which is closed session public comment. So we are going to be going to closed session here with agenda item number 5, which is for a conference with legal counsel, existing litigation. And we are going to request right now if we have any public comment on that closed session item, either in the room, looking at the clerk. Is there anyone in the room? Nope.
There are no hands raised.
Okay, anyone on Zoom?
There are no hands raised at this time.
Okay, looking at my colleagues on the Zoom participating, is there anyone at your locations who would like to make a comment about our closed session item? Seeing none, closing closed session public comment item number 4, moving to item number 5. This is a closed session. We will be changing physically into a different room to carry out this agenda item. For those of you who are participating via Zoom, please check your email. There is an updated calendar invite with a meeting passcode and also a link.
Meeting
to
ID,
that
yes, in
post.
addition to a link. Yes.
Excuse me?
There is a link and a passcode and meeting ID
Great.
for ease of entry.
So two different ways to get in a more recent email that has been sent. So I hope no one has any difficulty transitioning to our closed session, and that is where we are heading now.
It's next to the song.
Okay, so we have completed agenda item number 5, our closed session, and we are now moving on to agenda item number 6, which is general counsel report out of closed session.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. We have nothing to report out of closed session tonight.
Okay, and I'm going to look at our general counsel. We do not need to do public comment or anything for this
No,
agenda item.
not for that.
Okay.
item.
So this is by way of reminder, nothing to report out of closed session. So now we're turning our attention to the consent agenda. This is agenda items 7 through 9. 7 is the approval of minutes from September 17th, 2025. Agenda item number 8 is contracts entered into. It's an informational item. And agenda item number 9 is our fiscal year 2025-2026 Q1 treasurer's report. Does anyone here in the room or on Zoom, any member want to pull an item from the consent agenda? I see no hands raised on the Zoom. I see no hands raised here in the room. So we should take public comment. We should take public comment on the consent agenda. Do we have anyone in the room who would like to make a comment about agenda items number 7, 8, or 9? Seeing none, do we have anyone online?
There are no hands raised at this time.
No hands raised online. So then I'm also looking at our remote locations. Do we have anyone at the remote locations? I see no hands. Okay. So at this point in time, we can entertain, well, I should first ask any comments. And if not, I would be happy to entertain a motion.
Make a motion.
Okay. Director Barrentos, and I say motion is made by Director Barrentos and seconded by Director Nygaard. May we please have a roll call vote?
Yes, thank you. Alameda County,
Aye.
Albany,
Yep.
Berkeley, Dublin. Dublin,
You have to come back.
Emeryville,
Aye.
Fremont.
Aye.
Hayward,
Aye.
Lathrop, Livermore,
Aye.
Newark,
Aye.
Oakland,
Aye.
Pleasanton,
Aye.
San Joaquin County,
Yes.
Stockton,
Yes.
Tracy,
Aye.
Union City,
Aye.
San Leandro,
Aye.
Piedmont.
Aye.
St. Cloud is approved.
Okay, the consent agenda calendar has been approved unanimously. We are now turning to regular agenda item number 10, which is our CEO report.
Adrian, if you can pull that up. First item I'll highlight is we had our last executive committee meeting on Wednesday, October 1st. We provided an update on the administrative procurement policy. That's one of the action items for tonight's agenda. And we also reviewed a draft of some changes to the CAC guide. Based off of discussion and some responses, we're going to update that further and anticipate bringing that in the November or December timeframe. Next meeting is going to be on Wednesday, November 5th at 3 p.m. We also had a marketing, regulatory, and legislative subcommittee meeting that was last held on Friday, October 17th, and we provided an update on the 2025 California legislative session. Next MRL meeting will be on Friday, December 19th. There is a possibility if the agenda is light or there are no critical matters that will cancel that meeting in light of the holiday time. So just want to flag that. In terms of upcoming events, as we typically like to highlight, we have a few there in the table. Oakland Roots game, Stockton Coffee office hours on October 30th, and then an e-bike test and ride at the Coliseum Bar. So to further promote our e-bike incentive program. These events are lightening up a little bit as we're approaching the holiday season. Next page, just a quick update on our recent prepaid transactions. We've noted a couple of these at different board meetings. I just want to consolidate some exciting news there. We did price both of these transactions and close them. So we did our fourth prepay. That was with Morgan Stanley as the prepaid provider or the bond underwriter. And we also did our fifth prepay with Goldman Sachs. So this is our first prepaid transaction with Goldman Sachs. Both of those were very successful, oversubscribed, meaning there was demand for the bonds themselves. that creates a more attractive pricing environment. Each of those transactions was just around $1 billion in proceeds. And in total from those two transactions, we have over $100 million. So $103.6 million in savings that we're getting through these prepaid transactions over the next decade. So really excited to lock in those savings where we're flowing clean energy through those transactions. You can go to the next section, Adrian. Speaking of clean energy, we did want to just provide a little summary highlight of what we've developed in terms of long-term renewable energy generation. So this is a list in the table here, and the table extends to the next page as well, that highlights all of our new generation and clean storage projects that we've brought online. So these are new build projects with long-term PPAs associated with them. First project came online in 2020, and you can see how that has grown over the subsequent years. In the bar chart, if you can scroll just a little bit further, that's perhaps the most illustrative view of this. This is megawatt hour generation from that table of clean energy projects from 2020 through 2025. In 2025, there's an asterisk. That's just year to date. So that's January through September. That's why that bar is a little lower, but I would anticipate that to most likely be up towards the 1.8 million megawatt hour level for the full year. So we've seen continued growth year after year. This is all new steel, new renewable energy generation that we're bringing online as AVA through our PPA signings. So really excited and just wanted to highlight how that has grown over the years. Next and last section, as we typically like to do, just highlighting new hires on our team. 3 new employees, James Cunningham, who's our new outreach and engagement manager. Cordai Addy, who is our new power resources contract analyst. And the last but certainly not least, Amy Valen Diggum, our new director of accounting and our controller. And that is it in the CEO report.
Great. Thank you for that report. Do we have any questions at this time, either in the room or online from our board members with respect to the CEO report? I do not see any hands raised, so we are going to, oh, wait, here's the vice chair.
No worries. Just really quick question. So on your report, I just want to make sure I understood the chart that you put up. So I think the chart reflected not the incremental generation for the year, but kind of what our total portfolio is generating.
That's correct. Total
Okay.
for the year.
And then would we say, I'm trying to figure out what the right conversion is. Thus far, we've generated 1.35 terawatt hours.
1.35 million megawatt hours.
So is that 1.35 gigawatt hours? I'm just trying to get that to the.
1,300 gigawatt hours, 1.3 terawatt hours.
Perfect. I'm
Yes,
just
sorry.
trying to get my terminology right, because those are the types of numbers that you hear when you're talking about such big volumes. And so I just want to
Yes,
try to
the
do.
units
apples
are
to
very
apples.
critical there. And I do want to be clear, this is just coming through new steel, new generation that we've created through our long-term PPAs. Of course, we procure a lot of energy that may be from existing projects. Those may be on a long-term basis or on a short-term basis. Procure a lot of energy, obviously, in excess of this. This is just strictly what we've created, what we've caused to be built.
By entering into PPAs for steel that was not in the ground, we committed, steel went into the ground, and now we're generating.
Correct.
Perfect. Thank you.
Great question. Okay, I am looking at our clerk to see, do we have any, we're going to turn to public comment right now. Do we have any public comment on the CEO report in the room? Seeing none, do we have any public comment via Zoom?
There are no hands raised at this time.
Okay, and then finally checking, do we have any public comment via remote locations? Seeing none, I'm closing the public comment. This is not an action item. This is an informational item only. So thank you very much for that. And we are now moving to agenda item number 11, which is the CAC report. And this evening we have the vice chair of the CAC, Vice Chair Souza here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. The October 18th meeting of the Community Advisory Committee was, it occurred on the 18th, and there were a lot of concerns over the minutes, not including guest comments, and basically more information about comments made during meetings is asked for. The discussions around approving the minutes went on for about 40 minutes. That involved the time it took to create the minutes and the availability of the transcripts and the ability of an observer to select timestamps to watch different parts of the meetings. And we also talked about the use of AI to create the advisory, the minutes. And there was a lot of worry over documenting guest comments incorrectly using AI. Most of the advisory committee voted against approving the minutes for both July and September because of the minutes being changed in a way that perhaps didn't capture everything that was necessary or what was perceived to be necessary. Most concerns were over the use of the minutes, where maybe a small percentage of consumers would view the whole meeting on video or less, even reading through the whole transcript, where the majority of the audience would be looking through the minutes. So we feel that the minutes are extremely important for these meetings, which is why I believe the minutes were not approved. The meeting followed with the first with the energy affordability ad hoc, and that's just nothing to speak of there except that there's another meeting in November 18th. And then we talked about the LDBP ad hoc, which I don't know if you remember, but there's a lot of discussion about the advisory committee being involved with future business plans, such as early input for public engagement to incur early in the RFP process, and ensuring that engagement efforts are geographically distributed across AVA's service territory, including Stockton and Tri-Valley. Other items in the LDBP ad hoc was we'd like to see an expanded roadmap process. The one that was presented was a limited process at this point. It was a very good process, but we feel that a lot more can be done. And also strategic planning for regulatory, legislative, market and technological opportunities and risks. And we're always we're always looking for risks against AVA, and so we're very protective of AVA. The subject of also came up of an AI data center production. I was just reading yet another article today that perhaps AI data centers would equal that of the entire city of New York in demand. And it was brought up by member Pacheco, and he's interested in how it would impact AVA's supply and potentially raising prices for our customers. We're wondering if the staff or the board is considering a rate increase just for the AI customers, or some way to manage the increasing demand. And what are the projections, contingencies, and plans for this emerging future? I believe Annie did help us out and informed us that there is a staff opening for a strategic load director. And I applaud AVA staff for that. And that she also told us that there's no distinction between data centers and AI centers. I believe it's something that maybe should be looked at in the future. And Peter Weiner member Weiner asked if we should be looking at a distinction between serving people or machines. And that's it for now. We'll talk about the power content label at a later time. Thank you.
Great. Okay, Vice Chair, thank you so much for that report. I am looking at my colleagues online and my colleagues in the room to see if we have any questions at this time for the CAC Vice Chair. I do not see any hands raised, so we will turn to public comment. Do we have any public comment in the room on the CAC report? Where would it be like that? There's a podium here. And it appears that we have two people in the room for public comment, so you'll have 2 minutes each. Thank you.
Thank you, Board of Directors and staff members with AVA. My name is Do-hee Kim, and I'm the campaign organizer with Local Clean Energy Alliance. Also appreciate the CAC chair for providing that report. I was engaged virtually online, and I just wanted to uplift that as someone who has been a former board member of the Zoning Adjustments Board in City of Berkeley. I understand the importance of a public role in representing constituents and reading through hundreds of transcripts, action minutes, meeting minutes. And I think it's critical for whether it's CAC or the board of directors to have transparent meeting minutes to make sure that transparency, accountability, and integrity of the meeting minutes are ensured. And it truly does help the public constituents such as myself in AVA's service territory to keep being informed and being able to come to public meetings such as this. And so I really urge AVA to consider what an AI protocol would be in clerking these meeting minutes or keeping track of these meeting minutes accurately for public transparency. And I also wanted to emphasize, really appreciate the efforts for the local development business plan and the ad hoc committee for thinking of a broader strategy beyond just customer programs, making sure that we're thinking about energy procurement. We're thinking about the dangers of PCIA reforms and thinking about the AI data center and what that means. It thinks about open transmission lines, thinking about creative ways for the long term. I just really want to emphasize transparency, accountability, and also just deep appreciation for, I know these minutes are long and these meetings are long, and just really appreciate just your collaboration with us.
Great. Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
You'll be
To item.
Can we just pause before you start, just to make sure that we're all
Yeah.
set up from a AV technical perspective? We're all good? Okay, thanks.
Hello? Hello? Okay, just want to make sure. Hello, and for those that don't know me, my name is Izzy Carson. I sit on the Power Resources team here at AVA. I manage the carbon-free and rec portfolio, and one of the responsibilities in my role is to prepare the Power Source Disclosure Report, or PSDR, such a requirement of all LSEs. The PSDR filing really contains the underlying data for the power content label. So this is an informational item that was put together in response to a recent request by the board that staff provide an update on the 2024 power content following completion of the audit. So for each year's filing, AVA is responsible for two things. One, to submit an annual report, that PSDR
Izzy, can
filing.
you pause? Just want to make sure we're getting the presentation set up.
If you could actually go to the table, that'd be great. So for each year, we're responsible for two things. One is to submit the annual PSDR filing to the California Energy Commission, or the CEC. That details the actual resource mix for the previous calendar year. And two, to provide the power content label to customers showing the percentage breakdown by resource type. And that is what we're looking at here on the screen. Under the CEC's regulations, private retail electricity suppliers have to engage an auditor to verify the accuracy and completeness of the data that they submit in that power source disclosure report. Public agencies, however, have an option to either do a self-attestation or to engage an auditor. And in May of 2024, so last year, the board requested that AVA fulfill the PSDR reporting obligation through engagement with an auditor. So 2024 is actually our second year that we've engaged with an auditor to verify the data in this filing. For 2024, that audit was finalized on October 1st, so just a few weeks ago, and the associated power content label has been posted on AVA's website and was included in the memo as well for reference, which again, what we're looking at here. It shows every megawatt of electricity purchased by source, and all of that information, again, on the power content label comes from the underlying data in that power source disclosure report. The power content label is really a means to, it's intended to provide it to customers in an easy to understand format where their power comes from by source during a calendar year. Visually, it looks kind of like a nutrition label and displays the power mix and emissions for each of AVA's plans. As you can see, the Bright Choice and Renewable 100. It also shows the California utility average there on the right, which is to allow customers to compare their content and emissions to the statewide power mix. In terms of preparation of the actual PSDR filing, staff is looking at delivered recs, which are tracked in Regis, comparing the generation against all the invoices and contracts that come in through the year for accuracy. Also, carbon-free generation purchases are tracked. Those are done either using meter data or ETAG data, and again, compared against invoices and contracts for accuracy. AVA's retail sales numbers are validated through our accountant. Those numbers serve as our system of record on all of AVA's filings. And then staff populates the template provided by the CEC with those electricity purchases from generation over the calendar year. In terms of the actual audit, the procedure involves validation of facility information. So they're looking at all of the facilities that we're including on the report, ensuring that anything that we're claiming is RPS eligible is in fact RPS eligible. They are looking at RPS IDs, Regis IDs, depending on the resource, also the EIA IDs, making sure that those are aligned and reported accurately. They're also looking at generation and fuel type. They are also looking at invoicing and contractual verification, so making sure that all the invoices that we received for megawatt hours over the course of the year match what is supposed to have been delivered from the contract. They're also looking overall mathematical accuracy within the report itself. As I mentioned, the 2024 audit was just finalized on October 1st, and it's already been submitted to the CEC. And I'm pleased to report that there were no exceptions found to the filing. And that really concludes the update on the status of the audit and the power content. I'm happy to answer any questions, though.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. And congratulations on getting to this step in the process. It's great. I am looking at the folks in the room to see if we have any questions. We do. Director Balch.
Yeah, just thank you very much for the presentation. So just to confirm, because we used to, as a board, have to certify this in the past. Now with the audit that you've outlined and no exceptions and all of that, it's that's an alternative avenue for compliance, correct?
Yes, that's correct. Public agencies have the option of self-attestation, which is how we previously had brought to the board, where the board was attesting to the veracity of the data. And then there was a bit of a delay on the filing last year because of various
Just everything.
issues with Rex. And
Right.
so we were able to include, to do the audit for 2023 filing as well. And there were no exceptions to that filing either.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, I'm looking at my colleagues online. Do we have any questions about this presentation of our power content label 2024? I don't see any questions. Vice Chair, did you have nope? Okay. At this point, we're going to turn to public comment. Do we have any public comment in the room on this agenda item?
There are no hands raised.
Seeing none, do we have any public comment via Zoom?
There are no hands raised at this time.
Okay, and do we have any public comment via any remote location? Okay, seeing none, we will close the public comment and bring this back to the board. Do we have any comments other than appreciation for your hard work and getting this done? We do have a comment.
I mean, since
Director Roche.
I have a minute.
Yes.
So on the, I wanted to ask about the on the unspecified powers for choice. What was the level? What was it? What we're making. And then I'll start looking at the clear, that's 0, 0, the number didn't vote.
It is at 4%, so we did, we are taking the evaluation, but that's for 2024, it is actually 0.
Oh, okay, okay.
I can also know for 2023 or on 11%.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's a good. Okay. Thank you so much.
Great. That's a great question. Thank you. Yes. Rob.
Too easy for me to explain to my residents too. So thank you. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Great. Okay. This is an informational item. So, I'm looking over at our CAC Vice Chair. Did you have a comment? Yes, sorry. Please go ahead.
Okay, sorry. Thank you. Thank you for letting me have a seat at the table. We did have, we were very pleased with the power content label. I remember there was a member of the public, Tom Kelly. He was awesome, but he was always talking about the power content label. And the fact that I can't remember the numbers, but we are so blowing away the competition or anybody else as far as our emissions. And we're very, very pleased. I did want to mention that some of the members of the CIC had some questions on the power content label and how it would change when customer hourly usage would need to be presented. Was it 2028? Is it?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So that's a ways from now. Apparently that's going to maybe change some things, especially during the night if we're producing using no solar or wind. And then member Weiner asked about biomass and that has emissions, but it falls into the renewable category. And member Landry mentioned or asked about the nuclear allocation, which was already just asked, and you answered that question. But we're very, very pleased and very happy to hear the progress that Ava, and we really applaud you.
Wonderful. Okay. This is an informational item, so we are not taking any action at this time. Are there any other comments? And before we move on? Okay, we are now moving on to agenda item number 13, lucky number 13. And this is an action item with respect to Ava Community Energy's administrative procurement policy. I believe the presentation will be made by our legal director and deputy general counsel, John Perkins, but I'm going to hand it over to our CEO if he wants to do a pre-introduction.
Yes, we'll make sure to speak directly in the mic and raise the volume level a little bit. Just a really quick introduction on this topic. We did present this to the executive committee earlier in the month, took their feedback, made some adjustments to the presentation to make it more informative. Also just wanted to introduce John Perkins. Of course, we've seen him in our meetings for a while, but we've recently promoted him to our deputy general counsel. And so wanted to acknowledge that. And the importance of his role, and also just acknowledge that he's really built out a robust contract review and contract management system and suite of processes that we utilize across the many contracts that we have. And obviously we'll be presenting those details further in this presentation. The other really quick highlight I wanted to make was that our annual budget, our 25-26 budget is roughly $900 million a year. So a little shy of $1 billion and growing as we seek to expand it unincorporated San Joaquin County next year. Of that budget, the vast majority of that is, of course, energy expenses. And so this policy is non-energy oriented. So when you think about that budget size, I just wanted to frame and sort of quantify what this sort of oversees and impacts. So it's roughly $30 to $35 million of annual spend that is non-energy and non-personnel related. And it is also that number also does not include the local development funding allocation that we put aside in the budget. So it's that $30-35 million level, about half of which is under $250K sort of contracts and half of our pretty lumpy large contracts. So just wanted to give that as a little bit of a framing. With that, John, please.
Adrian, could we get the slides, please? Thanks very much. Hi, everyone. I appreciate your time tonight. I'm going to sort of queue up the reasoning behind this update and then walk you through some specific details that we made of the changes that we've made, of course, and then answer any questions you may have. Adrian, could you have the next slide, please? So as you probably know, our administrative purchasing policy governs the purchase of pretty much everything except energy. And this policy was originally developed in 2018 when we were EBCE and we were brand new, but the policy has not been materially updated since. And that's the principal reason for this proposal. We've obviously grown since then, a lot has changed since then, and we're seeking to update our policy to match those changes. So we are focusing on boosting efficiency with this policy by providing clear instructions to staff, updating dollar value thresholds to match industry standards and create more efficient delegation among staff, reducing administrative burden, and of course, eliminating unnecessary costs. Next slide, please. There have been some important developments since our last policy version. Over the last 18 months, we've built out our legal team by onboarding contract management personnel, and we have adopted a very successful contract management system. We'll discuss it a bit further later, but this is the Ironclad SaaS system. This has operationalized our contracting. It's ensured proper review. It's ensured that we have consistent approaches to contracting and to purchasing. And of course, I am responsible for implementing, enforcing, and refining our contracting processes. So I'm constantly refining them with our team, with our senior management. Next slide, please, Adrian. I'd also like to point out some universal purchase requirements, because as we talk about specifics, I don't want us to lose the fact that there are fundamentals that apply to every single transaction. So every transaction under this policy is required to be subject to appropriate steps to procure satisfactory goods and services, to confirm that the purchase is the entire scope of the transaction, so we're not segmenting or otherwise trying to bypass the policy. It must comply with our conflicts of interest code. It must comply with budget. And this is very important as well. It has to have a legal ticket associated with it. So everything will come in through a legal ticket. Everything will be managed through the legal team. Next slide, please. We also have some new controls worth pointing out. So as I mentioned, we have our contracting system. We also now have a established new hire training with all new staff, so they understand the requirements of the contracting process, what they're able to do, what they're not able to do, and how to access our various systems. Fortunately, our Ironclad system gives us functionality that allows for automated alerts and also reports to management. So no contract takes anyone by surprise. Everything is flagged automatically. It has approvers. It has built-in functionality to ensure that all levels of management are appropriately apprised of transactions. I'll add as well that we have in finance some additional new controls. As you know, we've recently added our first controller to provide expertise and oversight, and our finance function employs approval and release processes that require multiple levels of review and concurrence before fund transfers. Next slide, please. So at a high level, and maybe most importantly, we are trying to recover time spent by staff on staff reports, resolutions, and supporting documentations, including slide decks like this one. This can take up to 5 to 8 hours across the author, the supervisor, legal, our CEO, our clerk, and that is per matter, per agenda item. This also incurs generally per month a legal review expense of about $2,000, and we can recover this time by determining how and why we comply with policy with clear instructions. We want to reduce administrative overhead, especially for smaller transactions, and really focus on the appropriate attention to large transactions. And we want to permit delegation of review and signing authority. Right now, our senior management has a very, very large burden of signing and approval, where we can distribute this a little bit more equitably among our other senior managers. Next slide, please.
John, just one really quick comment that I just wanted to make on this slide, short but important. When we look at the cost savings number around $2,000 per month, that's a relatively modest figure. But I think the more important point that I want to emphasize is really that last bullet around delegation of authority and signing authority. John's of course going to review some of those details in more detail in terms of the increases in signing levels for the various job levels. And it's important for me to emphasize, one, I will certainly retain full accountability regardless of whether I'm signing a contract or somebody within the team. And we have good and adequate controls and processes in place for that. But more importantly, as we grow as an agency, we're 100 employees and growing, there's more and more activity that we're taking on and more activity that we want to take on, both from a strategic perspective in terms of focusing externally. And so in order to enable myself and other senior staff to be able to really spend that time adequately, as opposed to reviewing sort of operational processes and contracts, it's really important that we sort of delegate some of that authority throughout our staff at various levels.
All right, Adrian, next slide, please. So I will touch on the 8 material updates that we made here. I'm going to focus mostly on items 3 and item 6. So changing the board approval threshold and updating approval thresholds throughout staff. I will touch on all the others, but I think in the interest of time, those are the 2 that will require the most detail. Next slide, please, Adrian. So the first change we made is how-to steps. The existing policy is a little bit challenging for staff to follow, especially as staff has grown. So we've broken it down into 3 basic steps: required documentation, identifying a transaction type, and completing the requirements of that transaction type. And it's all listed out in the policy itself. Next slide, please, Adrian. We've come up with these various categories of transaction, and the categories each have their own distinct requirements. And we did it this way because staff was having a hard time determining what needed to happen for which transactions and why. So we worked very, very closely with staff to determine, okay, what are the types of transactions? What do they need to know? And how can we facilitate that execution in accordance with the policy? Next slide, please, Adrian. All right, and this is one of the ones we'll spend a bit more time on. I want to start by adding, there's one addition here. On the right-hand side, you'll see that our proposal to change the board threshold to $250,000, we have several CCAs this aligns with. There's actually a 6th CPA. is also at this $250,000 threshold. So we chose this based on a survey of our peers, which we'll take a look at in the next slide. You see that slide, Adrian? So this supports why we are proposing to raise our board approval threshold from its current 100,000 to a level of 250,000. So you'll see, again, there's the one mistake there. The Clean Power Alliance CPA is actually 250,000, not 125. So that's 6 instances of a matching threshold, as well as 2 instances of greater threshold, and then I believe 3 of a lower threshold. So it was based on this commonality in the industry that we chose this number. Adrian, could we go to the next slide, please? And so what we have here, one of the nice things about having our new Ironclad system is we can analyze our contracts a bit more easily. So we were able to break out where the number of contracts at various ranges. So for the number greater than 100,000 but less than 250, we would have been looking at 25 contracts over the last year that would have been approved by the CEO rather than coming to the board. And then, of course, you can see the breakdowns of 35,000 to 100, which is what we're considering our large but not huge contracts, and then 10,000 to 35,000, we're considering our smaller contracts, and we'll get to that a bit more later. Next slide, please, Adrian. What we provided here is a list of the contracts between 100,000 and 250,000, so you can see what kinds of purchases we're making. So we see sponsorships here, we see software here, we see design here, we see technology infrastructure resources. So these are the types of purchases that would be that under this proposal would be able to be approved by the CEO. Next slide, please, Adrian. Moving quickly now through a few of the other updates. What we have done here is we've updated the policy such that it can make non-monetary changes without board approval. Right now, any change to the policy requires board approval. We would like to be able to have a little bit more flexibility by getting the approval of both the CEO and the general counsel for other forms of updates, something smaller, something that might be helpful to the organization, but not necessarily rise to the level of needing board input. However, any of these changes would still be brought to the board at the subsequent board meeting. Next slide, please, Adrian. This one is mostly administrative, but it's particularly relevant to our general counsel. Right now, we have a approval as to form threshold of $5,000. So everything over $5,000 requires approval as to form, which means a signature by Indra or myself, depending on the dollar value. We are proposing to raise this to $35,000. The reason we chose $35,000 is in analyzing our contracts over the last year, 35 and under tended to be our small purchases, our purchases that could be very adequately covered by the contracting processes that we now have in place, bearing in mind that all of these contracts would go through the legal process. Next slide, please, Adrian. All right, and now I want to slow down again because this is another significant change that I want to make sure we provide an update on. As you'll see on the left, these are the current job levels and their approval threshold, dollar value approval thresholds for transactions. And you'll see they're quite low. So director can only approve up to 5,000, senior director and vice president up to 15,000, senior vice president and chief officer only 25,000, general counsel 50, and then of course CEO 100. And then in the middle column, you'll see what we propose instead. So we propose a director level of up to 10,000 as we are identifying 10,000 and below as micro purchases. Level 12 senior director, we've chosen 35,000, which of course, as we talked about, is our threshold for small purchases. And then as we move to vice president, senior vice president, and CEO, we spread out that range so that we could have more delegation and less administrative impact on the CEO for purchases that are really appropriate for these levels of a professional. Could we do the next slide, please, Adrian? What we wanted to do here is show you who we're talking about. So rather than have it be abstract, these are the actual personnel who would fall into these levels. So you'll see, of course, at the highest level, Annie, Rusty, Marie would be approving at the up to 150,000. And then, of course, JP and Trevor in the 100,000 and so on down. So these are the personnel who you see you engage with regularly, and this would be their new approval levels. All right, next slide, please, Adrian. I won't walk through this, but we did a couple of samples of what these purchases would look like. So the step-by-step, who would approve, how this would work in operation if this were to be approved. And we do want to point out that all non-energy contracts, so anything subject to this policy, would be reported to the board each month as it has been up until now. All right, next slide, please, Adrian. Very quickly, we made some slight updates to the legal compliance process in the policy. So the policy used to actually contain the requirements of California law, but of course, California law changes over time. So what we have now are flags to the legal team that will be able to update and maintain as part of our contracting process to make sure we maintain legal compliance with purchases. Next slide, please. And lastly, we've updated the maximum span of time that AVA can contract. So the reason we went with 7 years is we found well, I found in my career, it's a very industry standard practice to have a maximum of 7 years, because after that point, you really want to revisit your legal terms and make sure that they're still fresh and still appropriate. But I want to add, this is not to generally make contracts last 7 years, quite the contrary. This is to give us the flexibility to do so for our larger, more material agreements. For instance, you'll see a list here. We've got SMUD, outside counsel, auditors, really some of our foundational transactions. And that is it. Thank you, Adrian.
I just have a quick question before we open it up here. What is the current permitted length of contract terms right now?
It's essentially 1 year.
It's essentially 1 year. Okay, so we're going from 1 to 7 with this proposal.
Yes.
Okay. Great. Okay, thank you so much for that very detailed presentation. At this time, I am going to switch it up here, as you know, towards the end of the meeting, and look to my colleagues online to see if they have any questions at this time. We do have a question from Director Brown.
Excellent. Thank you so much for the
Oh,
presentation.
I'm wondering if we can increase the volume. Is that possible? Sorry, Director. Just hold with us so we can all hear your question.
Okay, sounds good. Let me know.
Okay. That didn't work. Bear with us. Sorry, we're experiencing some technical difficulties. Okay, should we try it again? Go ahead. Please proceed, Director Brown.
Okay, excellent. Hopefully you all can hear me okay.
Sorry.
Thank you.
We still
Thank-
cannot hear. Oh, wait, we just had it. Oh, hold on. Okay, sorry. Now I think we're good. Thank you. Sorry. Please proceed.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you so much for the presentation. I believe that, I heard that, no matter what these approved contracts that are kind of at that 250,000 marker, the board will receive an update. But I guess I kind of had this outstanding question, kind of two questions. Well, I guess I'm thinking through, if we're kind of entering into a contract period that's 7 years and just looking at, I'm not sure which slide, it says slide number 39 for me, but I could be wrong, but it's the slide that lists the, some examples of some of the contracts that kind of reach in between that $100,000 to $200,000 amount. And so I guess I'm curious, like, are we allowing flexibility for, maybe like a different vendor during that 7-year period? I feel like maybe that's my first flag. And then also, what happens if the same, let's just say, is it within a 1-year period? Like, I'm looking at, we love the Oakland Roots. I'm so delighted to see the approval here. But, I could pick another one, Port City, for example. What happens if, maybe we decide, like, within the same calendar year, we actually want to give another 100,000? Like, is there a limit to what that 250,000 like threshold would be? Or is it like, okay, we did 250,000, 6 months, and then in another 6 months, we're doing another 250,000. I guess I kind of wanted to get some clarity around that.
Absolutely, and I can speak to that, and the policy covers that. So if to your example, it happened after 6 months and then a subsequent 6 months, that aggregate would flag it for board approval. The way it's set up right now is if a transaction is engaged with a vendor, and then that transaction receives a second, maybe an amendment, maybe an extension. What happens is we look at the dollar value, and if the dollar value has gone up by 15% or less, even if it crosses that threshold, then it does not have to go to the board. But if it exceeds that 15%, then it must go to the board, and that's an aggregate. So that prevents us from doing the segmentation to avoid board attention.
Excellent. That definitely makes sense. And then can you answer the kind of question/concern around just making sure that, you all get the opportunity to engage with so many amazing stakeholders and businesses kind of up and down in the Bay Area, et cetera. I want to just make sure that we are being inclusive and not limiting ourselves in our ability to support other businesses. And so when we enter into agreements up to 7 years, would that be a little limiting?
Absolutely. So again, I want to emphasize, this is the ability, but not necessarily the recommendation or much less a requirement. The idea being that for those organizations where it makes a lot of sense, like I said, our auditor, our SMUD, our billing provider, that's where we want the option to be able to go that long. But as I pointed out at the beginning, we have a level of diligence that we apply to all transactions, and that includes, what is reasonable, what is appropriate, and that will often be a shorter term.
Yeah, I will also just add that, just emphasize the point that this is certainly not a requirement. I think we would do this very, very sparingly. Generally speaking, we do shorter term contracts. This list that is provided on the very last slide of the presentation is really a pretty good representative list of areas where we believe that it makes sense to have longer term engagements. For example, our scheduling coordinator at NCPA, they're another public agency that we've worked with since the very beginning. And generally speaking, it doesn't make a lot of operational sense to switch that type of service. Billing vendor, Sacramento Municipal Utility District, again, another one. They have very complex EDI, electronic data interface processes with us. They are doing all of our billing. And they are managing our call center. So those types of services are really complicated to change. And that's where I think this change in policy for up to 7 years has a lot of value. And then maybe the third one I'll highlight is counsel. Counsel retains a lot of knowledge from contracts that we put in place 3, 5, 7 years ago. And these are contracts that may be operational, that we would be going through litigation on. So those are counterparties that we want to make sure that we can continue to work with, or vendors that we can continue to work with for a longer duration. I'll point out an example here that's listed, Pisani & Brinker. They are our financial auditor. We, in fact, do go out to market more often than 7 years. And so we would not actually likely seek to sign a 7-year contract without going to the board more frequently than that, or putting out a solicitation more frequently than that. But these are just a really short list of examples, I think, are the really tangible examples that we actually would consider longer term contracts, at least.
Director Brown, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you so much.
Great. Okay, thank you. I think I also saw a question there from Director Tragub.
Yeah, thank you so much for the presentation. It was very clear. I just had one question, and it's around modifications of contracts if they fall under this threshold. Would modifications show up under, like, for instance, what tonight is consent item 8 contracts entered into? Or would it show up in a different form?
So if the contract was amended but did not increase past the board threshold, it would appear in the consent item. If it exceeded the board threshold and also by a margin of greater than 15%, then it would come to the board for approval.
Okay, thank you. And I guess this is more of a, like, I see tonight contracts entered into item 8 shows up as an informational item, and it's on the consent calendar with the recommendation. So would it be, I mean, I imagine we would just vote on the consent calendar. But are you contemplating a situation where someone could pull on the board, pull an item for discussion? Or is this basically a all or nothing approval?
I'm not,
Maybe I can clarify. I think at least I have an understanding of that. You can clarify if I've misunderstood the question, but for example, in tonight's consent calendar, there is a report of contracts entered into. We do that every month for transparency purposes. All contracts entered into over the past month, we report onto the board. That is technically not an approval from the board to enter into that contract. Those are contracts that are already entered into. That is just, it is an informational report that is provided via the consent. You could always seek to get clarification on a contract and raise that as a question during the consent agenda. And so we would be happy to answer that. Separately, sometimes on consent, we will seek action for approval of a particular contract. And of course, that is prior to entering into that contract. So that would be something that may require board approval, but we don't feel that it requires board discussion. And so we would put that on consent.
Thank you so much.
Okay, I think we have a follow-up question from Director Marquez here in the room.
Thank you, Chair. Just wanted to clarify. So if we adopted this modification to our procurement policy, am I understanding correctly that procurement contracts with the value of up to 250,000, depending on the level, the highest level would be approved by the CEO? The practice moving forward would be just like we're seeing consent item number 8, contracts entered into, but that is after the fact, that is post agreement has been made. So I'm wondering if there's any consideration at flag items for the board in advance. I don't know if we've thought about memo and email contracts at higher value that maybe a company in question or just some kind of insight that we have, trying to maintain the integrity of us being a public agency and having more eyes on us. So I'm just wondering if there was any consideration with, since this is such a new change, some kind of interim step.
Yeah, so there's a formal proposal here. I want to make very clear, this gives authorization up to $250,000 for me to sign. That doesn't mean that if an item that is $150,000, I feel like would benefit from discussion with the board, may have some controversy, may have some disagreement, that I wouldn't consider bringing that forward.
Got it.
It is just an authorization to be able to do that. So I certainly would be cautious here with this additional authority. It is, it's a privilege and it's also a risk. So I would certainly want to be able to bring forward items to the board that I think may have, questionable or uncertain sort of voting from the board members, of course.
And can I ask to follow up on that? That's per your discretion. Have you considered vetting that contract, bringing that possibly to the executive committee? Just trying to figure out like who you would check in with, so to speak.
Yeah, and I think there's, again, it is under my discretion per this policy, but there's different avenues of whether taking that to the chair or the vice chair, depending on the topic. Sometimes we would create an ad hoc committee to discuss certain matters. Executive committee, of course, is an avenue to do that in a public forum, or again, to the full board. So there's certainly different avenues for that check-in process. This policy does not stipulate a requirement to do that, but of course, those are always options.
Okay, thank you. And then with respect to the communities that were surveyed, do we know if this was their standard practice from the beginning of these organizations, or is this something that they've adopted within the last year or two?
I'm afraid I don't know the date that was adopted.
Okay.
I think the one we know is that CPA within the last 2 years.
They said in the last 2 years. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. Okay, I'm looking again to my colleagues on Zoom to see if there were any other questions. We had, okay, and you can always raise your hand later. I will try to pay attention. Okay, so now I'm bringing it back to members in the room, and we have Director Murata with his hand raised.
Thank you, Chair. John, thank you for the report. Quick question for you. Was there a thought about bringing this up to the Finance Committee for review as well.
Well, we brought it to the exec committee. I think maybe. So the
I'm not on that
chair-
committee.
I'm sorry.
I'm on finance.
I don't know if there was discussion outside of me, but my short answer to you is no, I don't think so.
I can say we had considered internally because the finance subcommittee is every other month. We elected to bring it to the executive committee instead, given that there was.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Because the finance subcommittee is every other month, we elected to bring it to the executive committee instead.
Okay, so it'll, oh, it's kind of past now, but all right, it is what it is, and I'll just save comment for later.
Okay, did I see Director Balch with his hand half raised?
Well, I don't think I have questions. So.
Okay. Okay, any other questions in the room before, and I'm now turning to CAC. Did CAC have any? Well, our vice chair, she can share later. Okay, our vice chair of the board.
A couple of questions first. So I want to talk about a 7-year contract. Let's assume that it's a 7-year contract. Well, all of our contracts have the right to terminate, period, full stop, always.
Do all of ours have the right all the time?
Yes.
Our template has it, but I can't say that all of our contracts necessarily have termination for convenience.
That is correct. Not all of our contracts have termination convenience.
Now I can see wonderful reasons why maybe a PPA might be structured a certain way, but I do get a little bit more concerned about really long-term contracts for where, you might have degradation of quality, but it's subtle and nuanced, et cetera. So that's one thought. Second one, in the hypothetical, it's a $200,000 contract for a year with, I'll call it a evergreen, automatic renewal unless otherwise requested to stop. Is that considered a 1-year contract at $200,000 or a 3-year contract at $600,000 or something else?
No, it's considered a $200,000 contract. So it's the measurement of the year, of the initial fiscal year that qualifies it.
Okay, but as an evergreen, it's kind of like intended to automatically renew.
So if the contract were 200,000 and auto renewing or intending to renew annually.
Yeah, so it will renew unless one of the parties says no.
Yes, then that would be, under this policy, it would be something that Howard could approve and that could perpetuate going forward.
Okay.
I also just wanted to provide a really quick clarification that we'll use this sparingly. In most cases, the primary instance, or I should say the primary drive for why we want to include this is to not be obligated to go back out to market to do a competitive solicitation process, which has significant operational sort of efficiencies. It's not so much about from day one, we would likely go sign a 7-year contract. So I just want to clarify that.
But in the example that I raised, that's a 1-year contract. It's not a 7-year contract. It's a 1-year contract that renews for however many years. Okay, so these are things that I'm thinking about.
Sure. Okay, any other questions from our members? And we can ask questions after we take public comment, but just it would, for efficiency's sake, if there's any other questions at this time. Okay, so now we're turning to public comment, and I am looking at our clerk and wondering if we have any public comment on this item in the room.
Are there no hands raised at this time?
Okay, and do we have any public comment on Zoom? Do you have any hands raised?
There's no hands raised.
Okay, and do we have any public comment in any of their remote locations? I see no hands raised, so I'm going ahead and closing the public comment, and I am bringing this matter back. This is an action item. And it sounds like we do have board members who have thoughts that they want to share on this proposal. So I'm going to start with our former board chair, Director Balch.
Well, so thank you very much, Chair. I appreciate the additional information from the executive committee presentation to this one, because I know the comments that many of my fellow board members are working through are ones that we raised as well. I will restate my elements there, which was exactly the $250,000 limit. That's a little higher than I'm used to. And so I did the work to figure out based on the size of the organization. So I personally moved to comfortable with that. But overall, the comparison to the other CCAs actually does not do it for me. It's a reference point, but risk profile is what I think we should always keep in mind. And I I respect that staff has shown us who those individuals are in this, and I have an upstanding and great respect for staff. But in the world we live in today, it is, I find my personal responsibility to make sure that no matter who's in that role, the policy is clear, because people will change and policy is slow. So that being said, you know, it's right there. I have not seen 7-year term contracts. I've seen 3 and 5 in my world. And I don't know if that's a conversation that the board wants to take up, but that is a concern. But the 250 limit, based on the risk profile, based on the types of contracts as outlined, and based upon, yes, the other CCAs as a data point, I personally have gotten there. And again, the report or presentation has more than what the executive committee does. But, you know, I think it's something we don't take lightly to alter the policy. So I guess I'll stop there, Chair, and appreciate the comment or time.
Okay. Director Roche.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I got the benefit of getting to hear the presentation in executive committee as well. And the discussion was, you know, we had a lot of the same questions. And I also kind of got to the comfort level in the 250 because, you know, and I think of Hayward, our general fund budget, so at about $200 million, and our sort of executive leadership has about $75,000 threshold. And so when I think proportionally, you know, if it, you know, what we're talking about here and Ava, it felt proportional fine and actually still quite low, you know, considering that proportionality. So, yeah, I mean, and I think knowing that there's still all the procedures to go through a regular contract that, you know, like there are going to be plenty of eyes on every contract. It sounds like even a micro contract.
Yes,
Like sounds like
every
right.
transaction.
So I, you know, I think with those safeguards in place as well, I am comfortable moving forward with this. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments at this time? Looking at my colleagues online, are there any other comments at this time on Zoom? And now the vice chair has his hand raised here in the room.
So as far as the signature authority, that I don't have concerns about that. I feel at peace with that. I think in proportion to the size of the organization, it's $1 billion organization approximately. I'm fine with that. I do struggle with just whether it's reporting or like in the examples that I gave you, I struggle with, wow, it's an evergreen contract. So it's really, we expect it to be $1 million contract, but it arguably doesn't come to the board because it's 200,000 for 5 years is kind of what we're thinking is going to happen in the real world. And is that intentional circumvention? I put no nefarious intent on any of this stuff. I'm just really trying to understand how it's going to play out in the real world. And some of that can be addressed through reporting. So we can do a 5-year look back and see, well, what are we spending under certain contracts? And then the board would have the ability to ask the question readily, easily, because there's a report that says this is what's happening in terms of expenditures. More generally to the 7 years, I'm still struggling. You heard me struggle at the executive committee. I'm still struggling with 3 to 7 years. For 7 years, I am more accustomed to seeing 3s and 5s, some sort of recognition. Now, if you tell me there is a specific exception that we want to make, like the energy scheduling coordinator, I get it. I mean, there can be some specifically advantageous contracts where we can make a policy exception. But when I look at the accountants, that should be your auditors every 5 years or 3 years, or I mean, I can't imagine a 7-year contract with the same auditor. Your bond finance counsel, I would think that every 3 years you go out to bid and figure out, like, am I getting the best pricing? So I'm really struggling with 7 as a number. But big picture signing authority, I don't have a problem with. So those are my thoughts. Thank you, sir.
Okay, and I'm just chair's prerogative. I'm going to turn your thoughts into a question, which is I'm going to look at our CEO, who is, we're just going to wait 1 minute. Actually, I'm going to park this for a minute and I'm going to go to Director Murata. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So John, Howard, I don't object to the process that we went through. I just did it with my own city. So it is a effort. So I don't object to what you come up with, what you went through. but I am going to ask to modify something here, based on, or make a slight recommendation, which is, and I'm going to parlay off of, Vice Chair's comment and actually Member Trigup's comment, which is, I think we should modify, consent, well, in this particular case tonight, modify, the consent item, the way that it's presented and shown, because at the moment, it's not legible enough for me to understand with the changes we're going to try to apply and implement, whether or not we're doing, we're staying either in compliance or other exceptions to the approvals that we're entering into contracts. So what I'd like to request is that we modify and change the way that the contracts entered section of our meeting, of our agenda is done in a way that's more legible. It shows the contract, it shows by order from highest to lowest, the amount of contracts that we're entering to, the years that they're being entered, expiry date, as well as, I'm going to parlay off of Vice Mayor's commentary, renewal points. So I can work with you on a table, but I really like it to be presented in a much more clear way because we are moving to a higher threshold here.
And
Would
I think
anybody
we,
object to that?
No, I just want a point of clarification, just in terms of procedure, and I'm looking at our general counsel. Is that part of the policy? I just want to make sure we're within the four corners of our agenda item on this, and because I take no issue with the suggestion, but I just want to make sure that that can be part of our policy as we're discussing this evening.
The agenda item is about our procurement policy generally, so I have no issue with the board discussing how we present contracts entered into on the consent calendar, and I'm fine with that discussion. That is not going to impact the language of this policy unless you are asking that we add something here.
No. A very operational point.
Great.
Not a policy change.
Yeah, I think that is a good suggestion that would help readability and transparency. So I appreciate it for sure. Director Balch looks like he wants to say something.
I'm gonna lend support to the concept that maybe the 7 years is a little too far. If the board was willing to, work on, again, I don't want to speak for anyone, but maybe in the interest of time, if we're at that point, and I don't want to take your thunder, I'll move to adopt the staff recommendation with an alteration to the term no longer than 5 years as a compromise. Although if other board members want a friendly amendment for a different amount of time, I'd be willing to do that, but that's probably where I'm at. So that's my motion.
Okay, so we have a motion, but yes, go ahead.
I just want to make one clarification. First of all, I'll just say I personally have no concerns with limiting that duration. I wanted to both ask John to clarify a point and see if this would be okay for consideration. I think the 7 year is more provides more sort of flexibility and efficiency from a competitive solicitation perspective. So I think I want to just confirm in the policy right now, the 7 year speaks to the fact that we don't necessarily have to go back out for competitive solicitation in that time frame. And
certainly during the life of the contract, yes.
Yes. Okay.
For those larger, more kind of funded.
And so I wanted to see if the board would consider a comfort level with, it's not so much that we have an authority to sign a contract up to 7 years, but we can, we don't have to necessarily go back out to market. So we would come back to the board for approval if it was longer than 5 years, but we could do that without necessarily adjusting the solicitation protocol.
Wait a minute. Yeah, so I need a point of clarification on that because the premise of a contract having a duration, I thought was that you then did confirm that the vendor you were using was still competitive in the market and that they were still able to be the vendor chosen. That is, and I'm asking for a little bit of clarification because that is the premise I'm hoping we would actually achieve, I think. That you cannot roll over the terms into just a new 7 year deal. You have to go back out.
Correct. So as currently drafted, this would allow, there's two separate issues, and maybe if we separate them, it will be helpful. One is, can the CEO sign off on longer term agreements? Or would the board like to see those longer term agreements? Another is, and approve them directly. Another is that we do tend to, that 7 years is also currently tied to our solicitation process. So it would allow us to extend a contract for up to 7 years without going back out to the market. There are sometimes, at any rate, price advantages to a longer term agreement that may offset the advantage, the advantages otherwise of going back out to the market. My suggestion might be that the board be authorized to approve longer term contracts based on the facts and the terms that are presented to you by staff. If you don't want to do that, obviously you don't have to approve them. But if it's more comfortable for the board to see those contracts and make do that balancing
Well-
yourselves, evaluate staff's balancing, then I think it might make sense to bring those contracts to the board. But my position would be that the board always has the authority to
Well-
waive the competitive solicitation in exchange for a favorable deal at your discretion.
Well, I appreciate that because I think the board is the people, and so that would be something in our prerogative by default of law. My assertion is that it may be a point of clarification, and thank you, Chair, for the length of time you're giving me, but we're providing general terms that should a contract meet these terms, staff at certain levels can approve. If the contract wishes to be longer than 5 years under my current motion, you have to come back to the board and ask for approval. And if you have future vendors that might provide a historical longer contract that we come comfortable with, similar to what the vice chair said, I think then you could come back with those very specific exceptions. But carte blanche, I'm not there. So I don't have a second on my motion, board chair.
No, you don't. And that, then you now have a second. So we have a motion.
Got it.
We have a motion made by Director Balch, and we have a second by Vice Chair Gonzalez. The motion, as I understand it, is to approve the administrative procurement policy as it has been presented this evening, with one modification that the length increase, number 8 on the presentation, the increase to the permitted length of contract terms is not 7 years, but is 5 years. Is that correct?
And it sounds like staff, just to clarify, staff is able to work with that, understanding that if they wanted longer, they just would have to come back to
Correct.
the board.
Correct.
Is that
Okay.
acceptable to staff? I want to make sure we're.
I don't have an issue with that. The point I was trying to articulate, I think, is a different point, which was I'm trying to seek, I guess, guidance from the board that they would be comfortable with us making a decision around whether we went out for a competitive solicitation up to 7 years or not. So meaning if a contract was.
It's okay, but you'd have to come to.
And that's what I was trying to get preliminary feedback to say we can make that decision. That's.
Yeah,
that's what I was saying.
but before you enter into.
Yeah.
You
I
need
think we're still saying
ratification by the board.
I think what I was seeking is that, of course, we wouldn't go sign a contract for, based off of the amendment is, if there was a 6-year contract, we would have to come back to the board. I think the way I'm really speaking to the competitive solicitation requirements. So we would, of course, come back to the board with any duration longer than 5 years. We normally, we have certain solicitation requirements in here that after a certain number of years, you have to go back out to market.
Gotcha.
And so it can still be a shorter contract. But we know when we go to the board for approval, that the policy allows for us to not go out to market for the solicitation. And that's beneficial for us to know because it takes months to go put a solicitation together, go out to market, get feedback. And so having that formalized is what has a little bit of value from a planning perspective. Is what I was trying to get at.
So I need to clarify if I may, Chair.
Sure.
Through you. Yeah, so Pleasanton does this. We have 3-year contracts and we don't competitively bid for if you want a 3-year extension. But because it extends greater than the 3 years, the council has to be involved. So that concept I understand. But what I'm trying to also say is the premise is that you're not going to have a very long duration contract for, I don't know, something that declines in value over time. It could be more competitively acquired at a future point, right? That's the premise of term limits, the contract.
Okay, if I may,
Yes.
this is an administrative procurement policy. We as the board can change the policy in the future. So it seems like there's been a lot of work done. And if with the motion that's pending right now, there's a lot of great work that is being adopted by the board at this time. And we can always revisit this item about length of contract if it proves problematic or unwieldy for staff or the agency. This is a very specific thing that we can revisit. Okay, Director Rish.
I just wanted to add, to Director Morales' point, is this something we're adding to the motion, his request to put the, consent items in some sort of table format, or is that just a,
That's more operational quick.
thank you.
But I do, I actually do think we should give direction to staff for that, because I really do appreciate that suggestion. And I think that if we give formal direction, then we know it'll happen. So
I would support including it if I can, Chair. Sorry, I'm
yes,
just
please,
interjecting.
go ahead.
But also just a little bit hesitant because I don't have full clarity on what items the CO would be bringing for possible consideration to bring to the full board. I don't feel like that's memorialized, whether it's the executive team, if it's just calling the chair and the vice chair. So I feel like we're a little bit half baked right now, like we're really close.
That is a really good point. So why don't we do this? Why don't we table that and keep it as a potential new agenda item at the end of the meeting? When we open it up for new agenda items, we can revisit this topic. And if we get enough head nods that this is a good direction to go, then staff can come back to us with a proposal.
Okay.
Okay. So, so now I'm turning to my colleagues on Zoom, because right now I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. We have a motion made by Director Balch. We have a second by the Vice Chair Gonzalez, and that is to adopt the policy that it has been presented to us, this administrative procurement policy, with one amendment, and that is to have the 7-year up to 7 years be up to 5 years in terms of the length of contracts entered into. Do we have any questions, any comments, any friendly amendments? I see none. Okay, so without any other comments here, let's go ahead and our CAC chair unfortunately is not in the room, but let's go ahead and do a roll call vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Alameda County.
Aye.
1 second. Thank you. Albany.
Yep.
Berkeley.
Aye.
Dublin.
Yes.
Emeryville.
Aye.
Fremont.
Aye.
Hayward.
Aye.
Lathrop, Livermore.
Aye.
Newark.
Aye.
Oakland.
Aye.
Pleasanton.
Aye.
San Joaquin County. Stockton.
Yes.
Tracy.
Aye.
Union City.
Aye.
San Leandro.
Aye.
Piedmont.
Aye.
Motion is approved.
It sounds like unanimously. So
Unanimous.
I want to just commend staff and John Perkins, our legal director and deputy general counsel. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
for all
everyone.
the work.
Appreciate it.
Yep. You put into this. So we have concluded agenda item number 13, and we are now moving on to agenda item 14, which is board member and staff announcements. And this is including requests to place items on future board of director meeting agenda. I don't know, Director Murata, if you want to go ahead and articulate your request again, and we can all nod our heads if we agree.
Okay, thank you, Chair. My recommendation would be for future consent items regarding contracts, to have a table or a more legible format where we can look at more detail as to the contracts that are being entered to in a way that is consumable. Because right now it's okay, but I think now that we're increasing thresholds, we would like to see more clarity there for more readability.
And have the finance subcommittee handle it, in my opinion.
Okay, so I think we'll let staff determine kind of next steps, but I definitely have heard, and I do see head nodding. I see it also. I'm looking at Zoom right now. If you want to nod your head or wave your hand or thumbs up, it does seem like that is something that the board is interested in exploring further at a meeting in the near future. Any other agenda items? I'm looking at Director Marquez.
Thank you, Chair. If we could also have staff bring back a proposal in terms of what the CEO potentially has in mind in terms of contracts that he would bring to the board to vet rather than just sign off with his authority. If he could bring back recommendations, if that's to the full board, to a specific committee or specific leadership, if we could just have clarity around that. Thank you.
Okay, so there has been a request that staff clarify which types of contracts might come back to the board and it be an exception to this policy. Is that what I'm hearing? Okay. All right. And Director Balch?
I just have a quick announcement, which is the e-bike rebate program. I am getting significant and numerous feedback about how well this is going. The local bike shops in both Pleasanton and Oakland, 2 different bike shops I visited, have sold a number of bikes on the program for people getting into the drawing. So they are also strongly complimenting how Ava handled it. I know it's in partnership with ACTC, but the feedback I'm getting is very good. And it's great that the program's running a long duration because I think it's picking up steam. And the bike shops, at least in the small sample size I have reported sales are increasing from it later in summer. So great rollout and commendable. Thank you very much, all of the team that was involved in getting that going, because they are very happy by it and have sold a lot of bikes.
That's
Supporting
great.
our sales tax. I appreciate that.
That's a wonderful announcement. Thank you so much. So I just want to make sure I'm not leaving out my colleagues on Zoom. Are there any announcements or any requests to place items on a future agenda? And I see Director Tregu with his hand raised. Yes.
Well, I wanted to follow up on that. One, we've been posting about the Ava e-bike program in multiple council newsletters, and the level of engagement with on this particular item with my constituents far and away exceeds most other items. So appreciate that, but also wanted to really appreciate Ava's participation at Sun Day in Berkeley. I know there were a lot of different Sun Days across the, both counties. But just heard rave reviews about the Ava table. A lot of folks had direct communications and contacts with Ava staff at that table. So just really want to thank everyone on the Ava team who made it possible.
Great. Thank you for sharing those comments with us. One last call before we move on to agenda item 15. I just wanted to thank everyone for attending and for participating this evening. This was a really nice discussion, and I look forward to seeing everyone at our next meeting, which is Wednesday, November 19th this year at 6 p.m. I presume it's back in this room. Okay, great. So with that, our meeting is adjourned at 8:29 p.m. Thank you.
There's a few operational kinks.